Celebrity
Good afternoon, everybody. People online, can you hear us?
Yep.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Beth. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jessica Fay, and I'm a state representative representing Raymond, Casco, Poland, and Fry Island in the Maine legislature. I am pleased to welcome everyone to this public comment opportunity for the PFAS Fund Advisory Commission. I think our first order of business should be introductions. I've already introduced myself. I am the House Chair of this committee, and I think I'll have members in the room introduce themselves first.
I'm Jenny Tilton, a dairy farmer. I'm representing the agricultural community on the committee.
And then we have some committee members online, and so I'm gonna, in the order in which we see you, I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves, starting with Suzanne Miller.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Suzanne Miller. I am the director for the Bureau of Remediation and Waste Management at Maine DEP, and I'm sitting in for Commissioner Loisem today.
Thank you, Suzanne. Suzanne, perfect with that. And Nancy Beardsley.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nancy Beardsley. I'm the Deputy Director at Maine CDC.
Becca Bolos.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Becca Bolis, and I'm Executive Director at Maine Public Health Association.
And Diane Rowland.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Diane Rowland. I'm the Dean of the College of Earth, Life, and Health Sciences and Director of the Experiment Station at the University of Maine.
And I think that's all the committee members that we have online. If I've missed anyone, speak now.
Good afternoon. Sorry, this is Sherry Hamill. I'm the State Executive Director for our Farm Service Agency, USDA.
Hi, Sherry. Sorry we missed you. Thank you.
No, I jumped on late. Thank you.
Okay. If that's all members of the committee, the purpose of this meeting again is to hear comments from the public. I think we're going to start off with a little update. I should introduce, I'll have you folks introduce, or whoever wants to introduce themselves in the room. Hi, Beth Valentine, Director of the Fund.
Good afternoon. I am Beth Valentine. Camera has gone off again. I am Beth Valentine. I am the Director of the PFAS Fund, and with us here today are some members of the PFAS team here at DACF.
Hi, I'm Maddie Bruno. I am part of the PFAS Fund, and I am focused on the research grant administration portion of our funds.
Hi, I'm Melissa Hamlin. I'm responsible for the land acquisition and help administer the farm financial aid.
I'm the director of the PFAS response program.
Wonderful. Thanks for those introductions. And Beth, you have a little bit of an update for us?
I do. I will share my screen. I hope. Oops. Share. Screen 2. Okay, are people able to see that? I'm afraid that if I click this, everything's going to disappear. Okay.
We are not seeing it on the...
Not seeing it? Okay. Share. Share screen. Oh, share. That should work.
Yeah, now we can see it.
All right, thank you for your patience as we work through a little bit of technical difficulties. So I want to give some background before talking about the work of the PFAS Fund. PFAS was first discovered on a farm in Maine in 2016, and it was initially discovered by a water district who was doing some testing. They found some PFAS in their water, which eventually led them to a farm. And ultimately, they found PFAS in milk from that farm back in 2018. At that time, DACF coordinated with Maine CDC to establish an action threshold for PFAS. PFAS is a particular compound of PFAS, which is a class of chemicals. So working with CDC, Maine DACF established an action threshold for milk based on toxicology data and dietary patterns. An action level is a threshold above which a food item is considered adulterated and cannot be sold. So from the very beginning, the state's response to PFAS has been an interagency response. Fast forward to 2020. At that time, DACF did some off-the-shelf retail testing of milk, collecting milk from a store that had been produced and processed in Maine. They had done similar testing in 2019. The 2019 test didn't reveal any concerning results. The 2020 test results, though, did identify a farm, another dairy farm, and again, PFAS in the milk. DEP undertook a local investigation, which led to the identification of a third dairy farm. At this point, the Bureau of Agriculture, Food and Rural Resources within DACF began working with these two dairy farms to do an investigation, providing technical assistance to both farms, again in cooperation with Maine CDC. In 2021, the legislature passed LD 1600, which required DEP to conduct a groundwater and soil testing investigation looking for PFAS at all sites that had historically been licensed to spread sludge and septage. Also in 2021, and as part of that investigation, DEP released a map of all the licensed spread sites. And at that point, DEP began their initial testing, and also some individuals self-tested based on this DEP map. So that's why you see this great big jump from 6 to 47 farms between 2021 and 2022. And I'll talk more about DACF's response from 2022 onward. The good news is that of these now 78 farms as of July 2024, most farms have remained in production. We have a much better understanding now of how PFAS moves through agricultural systems. We have more sophisticated modeling tools. It has taken time and money and undoubtedly tears, but it is possible for farms to remain viable despite the presence of PFAS. And also, I want to note that DEP's tiered approach to testing seems to be playing out as expected. DEP divided, they looked at all the historical licenses and established a tiered system, tier 1 being those sites that receive the most industrial inputs, receive the greatest quantity of sludge, and going down through tiers 2, 3, and 4, expecting there to be the least impact as they move further through the tiers. DEP is now in tier 3. And even though DACF has interacted with more farms because of this ongoing testing, the percentage of impacted farms has decreased over the years. So in the beginning, it was 75 to 80% of farms that had been tested were found to have PFAS above screening levels. Now the percentage of farms is 60% or less. So as DEP is working through their tiered testing, the proportion of farms being found to be impacted is decreasing. So what has DACF done in response? As I mentioned, beginning in 2020, DACF was providing comprehensive testing, assessing those results, creating farm-specific plans. That work, that testing has been ongoing, and it's not just soil and water, but also different media on the farms, animal and plant tissue, inputs to the farm, such as feed, outputs such as manure, trying to get a really comprehensive picture of where the PFAS on the farm is. It's also important to know that PFAS isn't found uniformly across the farm. There would have been staging areas where the sludge was held before it was spread. Not every field was spread. And there would be different constituents to the sludge at different times. So just because a site was spread with sludge does not mean that there has been PFAS contamination. But beginning in 2022, where we saw that big increase in the number of impacted farms, the Bureau of Agriculture, Food and Rural Resources established a new PFAS response program to sort of formalize the work that had been going on since 2020. That program now has 7 full-time staff members and 2 part-time. They're continuing with this comprehensive testing, but in 2022, they also developed financial assistance based on feedback they were getting from impacted producers and in coordination with agricultural service providers such as Maine Farmland Trust, Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association. And that support in the early years was particularly critical for being able to make timely payments. These private organizations can just work much more quickly than a government organization can. So from 2020 to the present, the PFAS response program has provided about $3.1 million in financial assistance to farms, testing support, infrastructure, equipment, income replacement. The PFAS fund came into being in July of 2020. It was established through legislation. Our co-chair, Representative Fay, had a hand in writing that legislation, if I'm not mistaken. I began work in September. This advisory committee met for the first time in November of 2022. Before the fund could begin spending the money, we needed to establish a plan for what to do with the funds. The advisory committee and 4 issue-specific subcommittees worked from November of 22 through July of 2023 to establish an implementation plan. That plan includes 23 strategies in 4 broad subject areas: direct financial support to producers, land acquisition and management, research, and health-related initiatives. Once the plan had been developed and approved, we moved into the rulemaking phase. The rules are necessary to implement the strategies to define who's eligible for which programs, what the selection criteria are, who's making the decisions, how will appeals be managed if there are any. So that was the critical step before we could move into implementation. The rules went into effect on St. Patrick's Day of this year. So from March of 2024 to the present, we have been starting to roll out the various programs. We intend to evaluate the programs on an ongoing basis. That is the purpose of today's meeting today, is to get feedback now that we're 6-7 months into implementation. How's it going? And based on the feedback we get, we'll look at planning, rulemaking, implementation, and continually improve the program as it evolves. So one of our 4 categories is financial and technical assistance, as I've noted. We are building upon the PFAS response program's existing financial assistance, and we work in very close coordination, and we've streamlined the process. We have 1 master application that is used for all financial support, whether from the PFAS response program or the PFAS fund. This covers administrative cost grants, income replacement, technical assistance and professional services, clean feed, equipment and input costs, infrastructure, debt service on existing loans, and new loan assistance. baseline eligibility for all of the financial assistance is that it has to be PFAS contamination above a soil or water screening level. I think when I had my first slide up, I didn't explain what a screening level is. A screening level just means that there's a level of concern. It doesn't necessarily mean that production cannot continue on a particular piece of agricultural property, but it warrants a closer look. We know certain crops take up more PFAS than others. Land that may not be suitable for one use is perfectly suitable for something else. So these screening levels are just where the department wants to pause, take a closer look, evaluate the situation, and give further guidance. So we have the master application, we have the PFAS response kit. The response kit is a guide. It includes applications, informational handouts, publications from various public and private organizations. It's intended to be used as a reference document and is going to be updated over time. We have also established a navigator program with the University of Maine Cooperative Extension. A navigator is a live person who can help connect an impacted producer with financial assistance, social assistance, whether provided by the department or other state agencies, private organizations. It's a person they can speak to provide that hands-on assistance connecting to services that they're eligible for. So since March of this year, the PFAS Fund has awarded about $2.25 million. The vast majority of that has been towards income replacement payments, but also administrative cost grants, business planning, and professional services. Our land acquisition and management program, the PFAS Fund, will purchase eligible properties at the fair market value as if there's no PFAS contamination. We work with an appraiser who we ask the appraiser to assume a hypothetical condition that there is no contamination. They value the property accordingly. We have had 4 landowners approach us about purchasing their property. The first, we have a signed purchase and sale agreement, and now we've moved into the due diligence phase. That's the title search, boundary survey, a phase 1 environmental site assessment, just to make sure that there aren't any other environmental issues we need to be concerned about. We anticipate closing on that property in mid-January. The second farm, we have a complete appraisal. Those landowners may be requesting a second opinion under our rules. The fund will pay for one appraisal. And if the seller is not satisfied, they can request a second appraisal at their expense. That's where we are with the second farm. The third farm, the appraiser has visited and we're waiting on the report. And the fourth farm, that site visit is scheduled, the appraiser is scheduled to visit in early November. So these properties are moving through the process. We work with an advisory panel to help determine future uses of these properties. To the extent possible, we want to return this land to agricultural production. If that isn't possible, we will look at alternatives such as a research site, conservation, maybe even recreation. But that is going, of necessity, will have to be very site specific. We have a major grant program with funding from USDA. We recently opened an RFA, request for applications for research proposals, $3 million. We anticipate the individual projects will run from $100,000 to $500,000 for multi-year projects. The initial sort of broad priority research topics were developed by this advisory panel and then further refined by the research, a research advisory panel that we're currently working with input from the PFAS response program here at DAACF, who works very closely with the impacted producers. These same priorities are reflected in a current request for applications that the University of Maine has open. That's an illustration of how we are working in coordination with the university system to advance research in these priority areas. The research program also acts as a facilitator. We can connect researchers who want to study PFAS in agriculture with impacted producers who have indicated to us that they are willing to either host research or in other ways support, maybe provide contaminated soil to a researcher. We do not give out the names of impacted producers. Rather, we have researchers fill out sort of a questionnaire summarizing their research. We then share that with producers. If it is of interest to the farmer, then they get in touch with the researcher directly. The PFAS Fund is also facilitating communication among institutions. Maddie is initiating quarterly meetings with the University of Maine in their new Agricultural Research Service PFAS Center. She's also helping to organize a half-day agricultural research event being held at Colby College. This is a joint effort of Colby, Maine Farmland Trust, Maine Organic Farmers and Gardeners Association, UMaine, tribal representatives, kind of what's going on in the world of PFAS and ag research and food systems more broadly, to include fisheries. The research program will also be sharing results outward. So results of the research we fund, as well as a bibliography of other relevant research funded by and conducted by other sources. And then sort of on the horizon, PFAS Fund will have a mental health support services program. We have contracted with an organization called Farm First out of Vermont to consult on options for developing a program that will provide one-on-one supportive counseling, peer support to help ease the emotional burden, wellness and related trainings for impacted farmers, and web-based resources, also potentially 24/7 hotline and trainings for agricultural service providers. That contract was just recently executed, so I expect in the spring we will have our plan, and then it'll be another period of time before the contracting is in place. Physical health. The PFAS Fund is exploring contracting options to pay for blood serum testing for folks that are eligible. So these would be farmers, farm workers, as well as non-farm residents whose water has been impacted by the land application of biosolids. We're in the early stages of contracting for that. Additionally, the PFAS Fund is collaborating with Maine CDC. We have a memorandum of understanding in place. CDC is developing educational resources for clinicians and the public to help people on sort of both sides of the examining table to understand when it is appropriate to get PFAS blood serum testing, and once those results come in, what do you do with that information? What follow-up would be recommended, et cetera. Maine CDC is working to make the results of PFAS blood serum testing a notifiable condition in the same way that pediatric lead test results are a notifiable condition. They are working on a farmer and farm worker soil exposure study to try to identify at what levels of soil contamination there is a concern for the workers' health, either through inhalation, incidental ingestion, or through contact through the skin. And they're also exploring the possibility of a body burden reduction clinical trial. So the health aspects of the program should be coming online in 2025. So that is what the PFAS Fund Advisory Committee and staff have been working on. And now on behalf of the committee, I would like to invite people to let us know how we're doing. You know, have you tried to access support from the program? What was that experience like? Have you requested assistance from a PFAS navigator? Again, what was that experience like? Do you have suggestions for future research topics related to PFAS in agriculture? Would you make any changes to the PFAS fund? Are there areas of need within the farming community that are not currently being addressed? So these are just prompts. I will turn the floor over to Representative Fay.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Beth. And a lot of work has gone into, as Beth has so eloquently described, that this committee has done. And the purpose of this meeting is really to get feedback on how the public and people who have interacted with the fund or are interested in interacting with the fund and these programs are finding that interaction. How can we, what are we doing right and how can we do better? So my request is to try to keep any comments, brief. I don't want to cut people off and give anyone a particular time frame that we're only going to allow you to speak for, but I would request that try to keep things brief and to the point. And I'm also going to ask for some help, some technical help in calling on folks online, since I don't have control of the Zoom meeting. So what I think we'll do, though, is maybe start with folks in the room. If there's anyone in the room that would like to comment, we'd love to hear from you now. I would just say, please give us your name. And if you represent an organization. Oh, look at that. We already have this. Perfect. Thank you. So I can either call on people or folks can self-select who comes up first. Go ahead. Welcome. And if you could just come up here, so we're
sure. Face toward you or face
thank
that
you.
way?
Yes. Yeah, please. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, my name is Alan Orcutt. I grew up in Maine. Graduated from Maine in '94. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Standard Biocarbon. We're turning sustainably harvested spruce fir chips into premium quality biochar. There's a lot of science and research that has come together and shown that it can be a part of the solution to remediate and address the problem. And I would just ask that there's strong consideration from both the farming community as a neighbor, as a community member, and from the fund and from the group you guys are tasked with managing this, to think strongly about a Maine company that's being part of the solution, investing in Maine with jobs created too. So we'd love to be an aggressive part of solving the problem and helping to improve it. And I'm hoping to be able to just keep my face around so that we can be part of the team. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orcutt. I think if members of the committee have any questions, that's appropriate. Keeping in mind, of course, this is more of an opportunity for folks to share their particular experiences and perspectives. So I would say, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Orcutt? Seeing none. Next on my list is Ms. Smith.
Oh, I didn't intend to speak. I thought that was just an attendance.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else in the room who would like to address the committee? Well, thank you very much. Let's turn to folks online.
Yeah, if people online could raise their hand if you'd like to speak. Is it Nani or Nan?
Yes, it's Nan. And it's not that complicated. It's not a Indian bread. It's just Ann with an N. Anyway, I'm calling because there's a lot of folks in the fiber industry who see this as a possible opportunity, frankly, to look at fiber both from animal fiber, wool from sheep, other grazers, camelids, et cetera, as well as the bast fibers. The Northern New England Fiber Shed has been working on a scaling project to look at, well, both linen and hemp processing and so forth and so on. And it's very successful. We've known in this state for decades that we can grow flax, for instance, which becomes linen, but there is zero fiber processing of the best fibers in the country. And it might be, the thought is that it might be an incredible opportunity to look at those. And I gather from the work that John Jemison did that there's a lot of uptake, though it was not peer reviewed, a lot of uptake in the bast fibers of the chemicals. So, and then in the retting process, the first stage is actually, when you ret it, those chemicals are consolidated for appropriate disposal. Anyway, I understand there's been a few of us that have sort of poked at this through the university, but we're not getting any traction. So I guess I'm saying it out loud to the committee because there's an incredible opportunity to build another industry that could be really beneficial to Maine and some of the land that we may not want to be growing food crops on for a while, and it may be a way to clean up the food crops. In the meantime, were we to, in my pipe dream, build a facility to do the best fiber processing for the textile, we would take in a lot of, the potential is to take in a lot of other custom work from other states and Canada, where they also grow a lot of hemp and so forth. Right now, the hemp processing is mostly going into things like a substitute for plastic dinnerware, for instance, and that kind of thing. But for the textile industry, and it's coming, people are looking critically at all of the plastics in our textile. We need a way out of that. We need some options that get us to the other side of all the plastics. And I guess I would love to have your committee, and I'm happy to work with you, work on some kind of a win-win situation that creates more bang for the buck. It's not just about mitigation to the soil with an agricultural product. So my question, is there currently any intention of doing research on fiber, either animal fiber or cellulose fibers, and how either the animal or the plant responds to uptake?
Thank you very much for asking the question and for being here today. Could you just tell us your last name and where you're from?
Sure. I'm sorry. Kennedy, Nan Kennedy. I live in Knox County, the town of Washington. I raise a couple hundred sheep. I have Polworth that I imported from New Zealand a number of years ago. I have the only Polworth sheep on the North and South American continent. I'm working on a breed registry for the U.S. wool industry. That's what I do. I used to be the president of the Maine Sustainable Agriculture Society. I've been on board of MAFGA, that kind of thing, for a number of years, sat on AgCom, that kind of thing. But I'm a farmer in Washington, Maine. I have a couple hundred sheep.
Thank you very much for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. I really appreciate it. Any questions?
Yeah, my question is whether or not there is any interest in doing the fiber research.
I think my question was questions for members of the committee for you.
Okay, thank you.
The microphone.
All right, seeing none. Thank you very much for being here.
Was that a yes or no? I'm sorry, I'm confused.
I'm not sure that we're in a position to answer questions like that at this point. I think the idea right now is for us to gather information, and we're definitely keeping track of these questions.
Super. If you could shoot me some contact of anyone that might have a remote interest, I would be happy to work with them. And I've left my contact information in the chat.
Thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you for everything you do.
The next person I see on my screen is Jackie Elliott.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, Jackie. Thank you.
I first wanted to say how much I appreciate the work of this committee. And I'm encouraged by the evidence of some cross-pollination opportunities perhaps going on here today with the folks that are showing up at this public meeting. I want to commend the state of Maine for its response to a very harrowing situation around PFAS contamination of our lands and bodies. And I really appreciate the serious attention to the fact that you're not just looking at a process answer, but you're looking at the people and trying to address the very real needs that are there and find ways forward that help those who've already been adversely impacted. And my hope would be to prevent a further complication of what we are already dealing with, which brings me to my personal interest. I am a longtime environmental health and justice advocate. Interestingly, my wheelhouse has been waste policy and the impacts of how we manage what we waste and the impacts of that on the communities that house the facilities to do those things. Maine was a leader, and I'm proud of our leadership when we said, no, we will not continue to spread sludge on our lands. We came to the realization, sadly, of what that was doing. So we said, no, we're not going to do that anymore. We are in a crunch about now that we're not spreading sludge on our lands. What do we do with it? Juniper Ridge landfill has become the default option for the crisis management of that. And there are a lot of details around that of how we might approach that in a better way until we get to the place where we need to be, which is to get PFAS out of the system on the front end with the products that we create. My concern has been that as I've spent my time in attendance of various Maine waste management meetings, worked on various pieces of legislation with like-minded folks in the state. There's a underlying conversation that occurs about we need to get back to the place where we're spreading sludge on our lands because it's really complicating what we do in our landfills. And then the conversation has kind of moved forward that, well, we can probably do that if we can just get the numbers around the PFAS pollution to a place where we can, quote unquote, safely start spreading it on our lands again. And all of that is quite problematic because technology-wise, we're nowhere near being able to deal with the PFAS contamination that we're already living with in a way that makes continued production of PFAS and contaminating everything we come in contact with it, even a sane consideration and option. My hope would be that as this committee would move forward with its work, and it's good work, I will say, to resist the temptation of doing that work in a silo, that you will make yourselves aware of what is going on, perhaps on the broader scene of PFAS and what we're trying to do with it and how we're trying to manage it in the state. And my dream would be that you would resist strongly any moves that would seek to weaken the very wise steps we've already taken to keep sludge off our lands. There are many of us in the state who would be more than happy to have conversations around this. Our encouragement would be to move forward in the conversation on the waste and materials management system, to get the conversations on the real front end of things so that we're dealing with the amounts that we create for waste and the toxics that we put into that waste, which the waste only represents the products that we consume and utilize. So this is good work. It's sad work that it's ever had to happen, but I'm grateful that it's being done. And I just hope that you will be very mindful of attempts on many levels that might eventuate in undoing some of the good work that you've already been able to accomplish. And I thank you for the time to bring that concern before the committee into this table of conversation. Thank you very much. If anyone has any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you very much for your comments and sharing your perspective with us. Are there any questions from members of the committee? Thank you again for being here. The next person on my screen is Adam Nordell. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is Adam Nordell. I'm a campaign manager at Our Health, an environmental health organization based here in Maine. I'm also a PFAS impacted farmer. I owned and managed Songbird Farm with my wife, Johanna Davis. And I have some written comments that I'm going to read. I'll also be submitting a letter to you all. Thank you for this opportunity.
Go right ahead. Thank you.
Thanks. Dear PFAS Fund Director Beth Valentine, PFAS Fund staff, and members of the committee, please accept these comments in support of the continued enactment of health-related programs envisioned in the language of LD 2013 in Governor Mills' 2022 budget and the PFAS Fund's administrative plan. Please move rapidly to offer blood serum testing, full medical monitoring, and PFAS-related health care. DACF's response to our state's PFAS farmland contamination has provided a first-in-the-nation model for how state and federal departments of agriculture can identify farmland contamination and help support the financial viability of impacted farming communities while investing in the improved safety of the food supply. The fact that so few impacted farms have been forced to close here is a testament to the vision of the legislature and the governor, as well as the focused work of DACF staff, the perseverance of the advocacy community, and the bravery of impacted farmers. We should all be proud, but we must continue to push for more robust policies to protect the health and safety of the PFAS impacted communities. In the face of our initial success, it's important to remember that the PFAS crisis is at its core a public health crisis that is in many ways still unmitigated. The success of DACF's programs should be judged by their ability to protect the public from the medical impacts of PFAS. In this vein, providing temporary income replacement, helping impacted farmers transition to safer production systems, and offering land buyouts has done much more than support farmers navigating a crisis. These programs have incentivized and facilitated cooperation between impacted farmers, DACF, and Department of Environmental Protection staff, fundamentally changing the economic risk calculus for impacted farmers and helping clean up the food supply. When farms can responsibly address contamination without going bankrupt, it's a significant win for public health. But of course, the people suffering from the highest exposure and the greatest medical risk are those living and working closest to the contaminated sites. Their particularly elevated risk demands the specific attention and resources of the fund. In 2022, during the height of the public's reckoning with farmland and groundwater contamination, the Maine House and Senate passed LD 2013. The language and program goals of LD 2013 were adopted into Governor Mills' 2022 supplemental budget to affirm her commitment to the farming communities suffering from PFAS exposure. That bill and the language in the supplemental budget listed 17 purposes for the PFAS fund. The very two items on that list detail DACF's obligation to address the health impacts, and those are monitoring the health of people whose agricultural land and water have become contaminated, and providing related medical care to people whose blood serum PFAS levels exceed the general population and/or who are suffering from the medical impacts linked to exposure. This original language appropriately places the medical implications of PFAS exposure at the center of the PFAS Fund's work. Moving quickly to offer free blood serum testing will help the exposed community members assess their exposure and begin screening for PFAS-linked diseases. The fact that this expensive test is currently beyond the reach of many insured Mainers should frighten anyone paying attention to this issue. Short of assessing their exposure, community members risk developing undiagnosed, untreated cancers and other linked diseases. The National Academies of Sciences, Engineering, and Medicine has affirmed the baseline consensus of the medical research community, the cocktail of PFAS chemicals to which many members of Maine's farming community have and continue to be exposed, has been linked with kidney cancer, breast cancer, testicular cancer, liver disease, ulcerative colitis, and more. The PFAS blood serum test offers the gateway to disease screening and accessing potentially life-saving treatments. PFAS Fund staff must also quickly enact a medical monitoring program so impacted Mainers can follow up on these blood serum results and get regularly screened for linked diseases, regardless of their insurance status and income level. This medical monitoring is especially critical given that the very high exposure Maine's impacted community is suffering from is in some cases 1 or 2 orders of magnitude higher than the communities whose epidemiology studies have informed current medical literature. Our urgent need for a medical monitoring program is underlined by the possibility that our serious uncharacterized medical risks are beyond those outlined in the National Academy report. And I would just quickly clarify that by medical monitoring, I'm referring to more than a blood serum test access, support for medical screening for all of the linked illnesses. Finally, PFAS Fund staff need to make good on the program's commitment to offering full medical care addressing PFAS-linked illnesses and move speedily to enact programs to cover the cost associated with treatment for any illnesses stemming from exposure to the toxic chemicals. This idea has been championed since some of the earliest impacted community advocacy, which led to the creation of the PFAS Fund in the first place. A commitment to covering linked medical care was also identified in the language of LD 2013 and the governor's 2022 supplemental budget, and has been affirmed by many members of the Health Monitoring Subcommittee. The medical care program should include treatment for PFAS-linked illnesses and also full coverage for any available treatment to reduce the PFAS body burden of Maine's highly exposed community. I would ask that you not leave the physical health of our children, of our farmer and farm worker friends, and of our neighbors to receive attention and resources as a last in line priority. Thank you again so much for your hard work to date and your continuing steadfast commitment to the impacted community.
Thank you, Mr. Nordell. Are there any questions from the committee for Mr. Nordell? I really appreciate you being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
The next person I see on my screen is Mr. Bordeaux. And I actually would request that folks who have already commented turn off your video so that we can focus on the person that's speaking with us at this time. Did we lose?
Once you start speaking, it'll
come okay. Mr. Bordeaux, are you still there?
Yep. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, go right ahead. Thank you for being here.
Great. Thank you for putting this on. Really appreciate the slides and the breakdown there. I would say I represent probably the little guy here. I live in Gorham, Maine with my family. My wife's family owns a farm here in Gorham. Not currently fully operational, was previously a dairy farm. We built our house on the land here in 2016. What turned out to be adjacent to and on my property now a field that they spread in that was later found to have PFAS. And the overall farm had a total of 10 fields that we found in 2021 that were now contaminated at some levels. Um, we're kind of in a position where we knew early on that we were not going to be the top priority for the state. Obviously, there are public health issues with larger farms, bigger amounts of spreading, water supply issues that needed to be tended to first. So we've kind of been sort of sitting and waiting to find out what we should be doing, what we should be concerned with. Our family built our homes here on the lands as the farm went not operational about 20 years ago. It was really due to the age of the people in the family that they just couldn't operate it anymore. But moving here, sort of settling here on this land, now having children of our own, like the hope was to someday help offset the tax costs of having the land by generating revenue from it again. But, from 2020, 2021, I mean, the whole PFAS conversation kind of stopped us in our tracks from proceeding with any kind of, future really for this land. And we've kind of felt like we were in limbo. I was really hopeful when I heard that, the state made this money available for additional testing and research so that we could hopefully get a clear picture eventually as to what are we able to do, what can't we do. I know there's probably a lot more information out there recently over the last couple of years, especially since the fund was made available. Obviously a lot more is known than when I started looking into this and asking questions in 2021 after the testing that was done out here. I guess my question would be, how do I know where we are sort of in that tier list? I'm sure we're somewhere right near the bottom, right? Because we're not a currently operating farm. But at the same time, what are the things that we should be doing as sort of a small operation here that would like to start back up in preparation for that? Where can we get some guidance on understanding just how bad is our contamination? I guess in just the testing for our own water in our homes that we built on this land too. So I guess we're probably behind the curve a little bit more than everyone else, and I'm sorry. This might not even be the right forum for this, but we're just trying to figure out where we are in all this. And having waited a few years now, it seems like it was definitely the right move to not um just to sort of sit back and wait. But it sounds like there's a lot more known about this now. So we're just trying to figure out, what should we be doing really? What should be our first step? So
Yeah,
that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bordeaux, Director Valentine.
I don't want to, the purpose today isn't for us to give information out, is to take information in. But that being said, we can follow up after the meeting. I think you should have a conversation with Director Megan Hennessy of the PFAS Response Program, who can provide technical assistance, the type you're asking about. And also, I just want to clarify that the DEP's tiered system is based on level of risk, not the current use of the property. So the fact that you're no longer an active farm has no bearing on where on that list you are. If you haven't been contacted yet, you are at least in tier 3, maybe tier 4.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. I see another hand up, Kat Taylor. Welcome, Kat.
Hello. My name is Kat Taylor and I live in Argyle Township, which is about 2.5 miles as the crow flies from Juniper Ridge landfill. I wanted to ask first, a little housekeeping, when is the deadline for written comments on this meeting?
Today.
Today.
Yes.
So I sent you something yesterday via email. Will that be looked at, and are the comments being posted online where we can see what other people are concerned about?
That's a really good question that I don't have an answer to because I'm not completely clear on, after we take the comments in, how those will be managed.
Okay, so I'm with Jackie Elliott. She and I have worked together before on waste management issues, and I noticed that in your documentation, you don't have anything regarding the dumping of wastewater treatment sludge that's contaminated with PFAS chemicals on our landfills, which to me seems to exacerbate the problem. Rather than dealing with the contamination of wastewater treatment sludge, the department is merely diverting it and kicking the can down the road, so to speak. We've reached epidemic proportions with PFAS contamination in this state, and I'm sure the DEP isn't really looking for more in other areas, but I'm sure as things continue on, other contamination sites will be brought into focus. And I would hope that part of the funding that we've received to address the PFAS issue would be used to help design testing systems and isolation systems for wastewater treatment sludge, rather than dumping it on landfills where it mixes in with municipal solid waste, oversized bulky waste, and construction and demolition debris. It's also listed in some of the documentation on the department's website under the landfill leachate report of 2024 that wastewater treatment sludge is going to Juniper Ridge as special waste, which is allowed. However, PFAS chemicals are listed by the EPA as hazardous waste, which is not allowed on Juniper Ridge. So I'm hoping the department will correct this and find other suitable isolated locations where we can keep the contamination from spreading, to test certain purification methods other than incineration or drying it out and then dumping it on the landfill, because it's compounding the problem. Every container that is filled with wastewater treatment sludge is just exacerbating the PFAS contamination. And the DEP is expecting Casella Waste Management Systems to come up with a solution when landfill is their most profitable method of dealing with waste. They take the leachate that is untreated from Juniper Ridge and they take it to the Nine Dragons paper mill in Old Town, which is closed, and they run it through their wastewater treatment facility, which does nothing to treat the PFAS. And Nine Dragons was actually fined a few years ago for dumping 50,000 gallons of sodium hydroxide into the Penobscot River before it was found. And then the public wasn't notified until 2 years later, when a news article in the Bangor Daily News mentioned that they were getting fined by the DEP. So we're in a crisis mode here in this area with wastewater treatment sludge. It seems as if Juniper Ridge has become the default location, as well as Norwich Walk, which is a commercial landfill. This just compounds the problem. I hope that the department will find suitable areas to at least keep wastewater treatment sludge in drying mode so it isn't wet and leaching into the ground, and also keep it away from our municipal solid waste and landfills. This is just putting the problem in a different light, and we've worked for years to clean up the Penobscot River. It's really sad that this is the option that the state chooses. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for being here and sharing your comments. Are there any questions for Kat Taylor? Seeing none, thank you again for being here. Is there anyone else online who would like to share comments with the committee? Raise your hand. Going once? Going twice? Seeing none, thank you everyone for being here and sharing your comments. I think I will close this public meeting.
I have
For public comment, Director Valentine.
I have a little presentation to make. I want to thank you, Representative Fay, for your time on this committee. For those that don't know, Representative Fay is leaving the legislature at the end of her term officially in December. She played a significant role in establishing the fund in statute, and then was one of our 2 inaugural co-chairs of the advisory committee. Profoundly grateful for your leadership, and thank you for everything that you've done.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It has been a great privilege to serve in the legislature and to serve on this committee and to feel like we're making a difference in the lives of Maine people and solving some very complex and very real problems. This, for me, this is how this committee and the way that things have gone here is how government should work. So I really appreciate the recognition, and I'd like to just say thank you to the staff and to DACF and to everyone who's been involved in the committee for all of your hard work. It hasn't been easy, but it's really good to see it starting to bear fruit. So thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? Members of the committee will stay in touch. Not sure what the next steps are, will happen after I leave, but again, it's been a pleasure. And if there's no other comments, I'll adjourn our meeting. Okay. Thank you, everyone.